Yeah, so I told them, I'm not really a cricket type of guy. But I like my curries on the mild side, Vindaloo, no thank you, not for me. And probably, if I had to choose, I'd probably choose a Guinness over a Cobra beer.
What are you trying to say? That you're not really a Bobby Deol kind of guy, you're more into Bobby Dylan?
Oh, talking of Bob Dylan, as you said, the times, they are a-changing.
So what, are you trying to shatter every single stereotype that's associated with British Asians all in one fell swoop? I mean, do you think the world will be able to handle it, Manish Sahi?
Let's find out.
Welcome to the Shabby And Man podcast. We are partners, parents, podcasters, broadcasters.
And everything else in between. Now, what are we talking about today? We're talking about Black Lives Matter because it's been all over the news. We've seen the protests. We've seen statues being toppled. This latest thing happening today.
That's right.
So, as it's a caveat that Black lives do matter. It's the most important thing. But I thought we'd make it a bit more personal, talk about how it's affected us, what it's done to us in our life.
Yeah, and therefore we are taking it a step further and talking about racism in general. And the world has now erupted. Everybody's embraced this movement, and minority communities all across the world have felt it necessary now to highlight to the rest of the world how they have at a certain point in time been felt marginalized or suppressed. And so this is about race, it is about identity, it is about shattering myths of superiority virtually on the basis that you're of a certain skin color or you're of a certain race. And by making it personal, by talking about our own personal experiences, we thought we might be able to shed some light on how we have dealt with racism or have not dealt with racism.
Yeah, like if you're asking me, I think I've been quite fortunate that I haven't, even though I've grown up in London and, as you said, in India as well. Maybe because London is such a melting point of cultures, races, so many immigrants, I haven't really faced that much racism.
So you think...
I mean, I'm sure when I was a kid, I was called names and all that, but nothing that scarred me.
And do you think that might have something to do with the fact that you actually didn't grow up in a predominantly Asian neighborhood, which could have gone against you?
It could have gone totally the other way. You're right, I didn't grow up in a predominantly Asian neighborhood. It could have gone the other way because you're the only one in the village kind of thing.
So you would stand out.
Yeah, they could be very mean to you maybe. But I'll tell you a story. When I was... many years later, when I was up north in Staffordshire and I was doing my degree, as usual, I arrived late for the thing, so I couldn't get hostel accommodation. So I lived in this beautiful, scenic, tiny village where to get to the main road was a mile walk. It was very pretty. But there was no transport unless you got the 8 o'clock in the morning school bus, which they let you. So for the first 2-3 weeks, no one gave me a lift. I used to walk up. But by the end of the month, everyone was, over nice, over patronizing maybe, but they're very lovely.
So once they got to know you,
once they got to know me, stopping, giving me lifts. There was one guy who used to come in the morning on a motorbike, honk his thing, and I'd get on the back with him, and he'd take me into town, forget the bus.
So if somebody asked you whether or not you've ever faced racism in your life growing up as a British Asian, your answer would be no.
Very minor racism. Of course, I've had the odd thing said to me when I've walked past and all, but I've not been beaten or attacked or mugged or,
as you're saying, you haven't been scarred.
On,
For me, it was very different because I grew up in India. So naturally, the question of racism doesn't arise. But then again, even in India, within communities or even in a secular country where several religions coexist, I've always had people come up to me and express, surprise, in fact, over my name, which is a Persian name, but I'm a Hindu. And to the point that they would always mention it to me that, so you're not Muslim, so why do you have a name like Shabnam and things like that? So that always stood out. So I knew that, religion was a very strong part of our identity in India. And so was, I think, the caste system. I mean, I grew up in a cosmopolitan city like Delhi, and I grew up with extremely broad-minded parents. And therefore, I never faced it personally, but, even in India, when you look at...
Your name you're talking about?
My name and the fact that, even though we're all Hindus, even amongst Hindus, you've got different subsections.
There's so many I know what you're going to say. You're talking about the color of your skin, how dark with the shade of your skin.
Yes. So I think growing up, my insecurities were more about the fact that I'm dark-skinned, you know. So
isn't that what they call in those marriage ads? Not that I've ever read a marriage ad. Isn't that what they call wheatish?
Yeah, possibly.
Why do they call it wheatish when I wish they'd say things like coffee-colored, olive skin,
cappuccino shaded, or whatever it is. You know, when you actually completely a different track here. The names that foundations have been given by Body Shop are my absolute favorite. You know, they have things like coffee reminded me. They have almond, Andalusian almond, and, you know, mild cappuccino and things like that. So even when you're choosing your color palette, which is obviously...
you can have mild cappuccino or dark cappuccino.
You can have a double shot of cappuccino or mild cappuccino, something like that.
Very smart.
So that's the thing. My insecurities were centered around the fact that, you know, I was dark-skinned, and therefore a lot of people, again, not my immediate family, but I'm sure there were comments made by people around me that made me very aware of the fact that light-skinned was the desirable thing to be. And we are talking about people commenting on things that are actually not in your control. Your race is something which you cannot change. It is your DNA. It is your heritage. It is something you should be proud of. Your color of skin is something you cannot change. And people holding that against you, that is the sad thing, right?
Actually, this brings me on to something totally different again. But have you noticed recently that thanks to this Black Lives Matter, you got a lot of these Bollywood celebrities tweeting and putting Instagram posts on it. But they've all kind of done skin lightening cream ads.
Yes.
A majority of them have.
They're all being now, you know.
And I think it's the usual thing that they do it, and they, you know, the PR people tell them, oh, just do it.
They do it, they make the money.
And make the money, and then you just apologize and say, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know what's going on, I was new to the industry.
While I don't support that at all, let's not forget it's symbolic of how society thinks. It's not just these Bollywood stars who are saying that, you know, oh, come and put this cream on and you'll be as fair as I am. They are saying what society says to every girl, probably. Again, the distinction between a girl and a guy. We're also getting into a gender bias here. In India, you know, it is, unless you're extremely broad-minded, everybody wants a boy. Everybody wants, that's, again, another debate.
But those things are changing.
Those things are changing, yes, but not rapidly enough. But today we're looking exclusively at racism. So even I would say that I didn't face racism, but I can understand how one, a particular, a person growing up, especially when, you know, your self-confidence is not at its peak, when you're still discovering who you are, you're still kind of trying to adjust to, you know, your adolescence and stepping into the world, only discovering what the big bad world is all about.
Even subsectors in this also, there's like the Brahmins, you got the fair Brahmins who don't like the darker Brahmins.
Those who might say that, you know, we've been priests for generations, and that just by being from a family of priests, I'm superior, more superior than you. You hear such heartbreaking tales of, you know, one person not giving another person food, or the Dalits or the untouchables are not people, you know, they say that if we see you first thing in the morning, then our day is going to be ruined, or, you know, we're not going to give you food, and if we touch you, it's a bad thing. How terrible. So there've always been movements, you know, in various parts of the world that try and kind of make it a level.
That reminds me, were you around, was it 20, 30 years ago when the Mandal Commission happened? Do you remember that?
20, 30 years ago, was I around? Yes, I was definitely around. I was in school then. And Mandal Commission was a big thing, I remember, because...
Just to tell everyone, to all your podcast listeners, what it is.
The Mandal Commission was a commission that had been set up by the Indian government, which came back with its findings to say that there should be a reservation. Certain percentage of jobs, office jobs, government jobs, should be reserved for people from the lower classes.
And they should go to people from exactly lower class. And I think 20, 30 years down the line, it has made a difference.
It has probably
I remember then, I think it was 20 years ago, probably 20, 25
years ago, probably.
That there was... Your friends and all probably, you know, were demonstrating, saying, no, it's all on merit.
I was still in school.
Not you.
But yes,
your kind of ilk kind of people.
Yes.
The brainy university types were saying that, you know, it should be on merit.
Yeah.
We're fighting so hard for a place, we're going to lose that also.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a huge public outcry, and even following, again, coming back to what's happening in America right now, and, you know, how the rest of the world has reacted to it. I was on a Zoom call to 3 of my closest friends in the world. So one of them is married to a white American, but she's Indian, we're all Indian. She lives in Florida, and 2 other friends in India, and me in London. So the 4 of us were having a chat, and we were talking about this George Floyd incident, and she said that, look, I'm in academia, I'm a professor, my husband's a professor, and we feel that when at that level in the world of academics, merit should be the only deciding factor. It should not be on your color of skin or whether you're on your gender.
Meritocracy, one of my favorite words,
Meritocracy is because otherwise you're diluting the academic brilliance of an institution, which is again not something that you want.
I bet you didn't agree with that.
I didn't, because I
so.
said that I think laws are extremely essential. Because if you were to let nature take its course and let suppressed people take their own sweet time to get all the advantages that everybody else have and come up in society, that's going to take
forever.
Thousands of years, right? And I feel that is why I feel, again, maybe we are biased because we live in this country, the UK is a lot more open, is a lot more accepting as a society than America is. That's my take, having lived in the UK for so many years now.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with you because, sorry, there's a lot of boxes to tick.
No, there are a lot of boxes
which they like to tick.
No, but I think it's important to have those boxes to tick, because that's why, for instance, every time we did the school run when our kids were in primary school, you would see it's, as you said, it's a melting pot of cultures and languages, and everything is celebrated. They would have an assembly on Indian culture. They would have an assembly on African culture. They would have an assembly on French culture, Iranian culture. So these kids from a young age.
This is London. It's
London is different. I do understand London is different, but by and large, I get the sense that in UK people are more tolerant and more accepting.
I like to think so as well. I think.
Yeah. And so tell me, do you think as British Asians we actually make a conscious decision to either go out of the way and embrace British culture more so we don't stand out? Or do you think we say, let's just live in our own cocoon and still kind of, be closer to everything that comes to us naturally?
I personally think both are wrong. If you just live in your little bubble, that's also wrong. And if you go too much the other side to just please everyone,
then you're completely denying yourself the pleasure of knowing your culture.
Exactly. I think it should be a balance. You should be very proud of who you are, where you came from, but also be happy to adjust to the other side.
I also find it hard to answer when people ask me, have you ever faced racism at work? Now, my answer would be a straightforward no. And that has a lot to do with the fact that I have predominantly worked with the Asian community. I have worked with the mainstream as well. I have worked with Europeans as well. But predominantly my work has been in the Asian community, and I have not seen racism at all that has ever made me feel that I'm either not worthy of, or I'm being looked down upon, or I'm being patronized. I haven't felt it at all.
But when you worked in all these European TV shows, were they nicer to you?
They were very nice to me. But then I don't know whether that was because they felt that, we shot the entire show in India across so many months, in fact, a year. And then I put that book out. I don't know whether I was the exotic element of the show, and therefore they kind of really looked after me well. But again, maybe it's a personal experience, but I've been really lucky to not have ever faced racism to the point that, it has disturbed me, or it has changed my thinking, or altered me in any way. As parents, raising two teenagers now, in multicultural Britain of this day and age, what do you think our duty is? I think on a very micro level, on a personal level, it is our duty to tell our children about these things, to talk about these things, because when they step into the wider world, they will know about racism. They will know about what's happening around the world already.
They already do.
What is the solution to it? I think education plays a very big role in determining your self-confidence. And from self-confidence comes the confidence to take on any knocks that life might throw at you. If somebody says to our child, later in their year that, oh, you're not worthy of this job because you're of a certain ethnicity, or because you're of
Which is what happens.
I think if you enlighten yourself, if you educate yourself, if you are made aware of the fact that everyone is equal, and that at the end of the day, you are as good as meritorious, if that is a word.
I know, but you've also got to go the other side and explain to your kids. You've got to explain to them that there are glass ceilings.
Yes.
Which maybe many of their friends may not have.
Yeah, which they do have. So,
and they've got to break them. They've got to break those barriers. As you said, you've got to give them the confidence.
You've got to give them the confidence. You've got to make them feel loved in their own skin. You've got to make them feel that they are in no way inferior to anyone else if they put in the hard work, if they are on the straight and narrow, and if they put their heart and soul into whatever they want to make their profession. They should have the confidence to think that they could get to the top.
And
when reality hits them, and achieve anything. When reality hits them, if the reality is different, and reality is rapidly changing, right?
Yeah, but it is different. It's not. so clear cut.
Yeah.
That,
You know, I feel it.
Whatever you want, you just go for it and you'll get it. Because 9 times out of 10, you probably won't.
Yeah. But I feel that as a parent who is either British Asian or an Asian in Britain, whichever way I describe myself, it depends on what my mood is. My outlook, I think, is completely different for my kids because they were born here. They're growing up here. This is their country. There's not even a shadow of a doubt in their mind that they belong elsewhere or that, while they're proud of their Indian heritage, this is completely their country. But I still feel in the corner of my heart somewhere, I still struggle, as we've spoken about so many times in this podcast, I still struggle to define home. And I think it's going to be easier for their generation. Let's just hope that all these protests actually lead to some concrete laws being changed to accommodate more people of a wider ethnic mix to, really not be made to feel inferior, because that's what this is all about. George Floyd, what really made me teary-eyed was the fact that how can one man do this to another man in full public view with so many people looking on? And then came the racist argument that a white man in a uniform, naturally, institutionally, he's been given to believe that he has the right to do what he did to this other man and he can get away scot-free.
This sort of thing happens in India as well. Have you not seen those videos of politicians and policemen slapping left, right and centre
beating
someone?
Up Dalits, yeah. Even in India, human life is very cheap. Because in India, there's another angle to it. In India, you feel that once you've got into politics, that is your safe harbour. You can get away with murder, practically, as long as you have, political power, as long as you have money. That is a different thing. But let's just hope that all these movements that have erupted, these small movements that have erupted in support of Black Lives Matter, which is the biggest chant right now, let's hope that it leads to a better world for our children. Otherwise, the loss of life would have been in vain.
In vain, right. There's a couple of things we disagree on. You're a great fan of BME.
Yeah.
Black, Asian, ethnic minorities.
Yeah.
Right? I feel it's a lot of
box ticking. So do you think there should be... Again,
it's correct that there should be a little bit... There should be a helping hand.
Yeah.
But everything should not be determined by your ethnicity. That you can only get this job because you've ticked this box. You can only talk about this because you're from this place. You know what I'm trying to talk about? That all the jobs we've got in writing and all, it has to be India-centric, about food or about Bollywood. No one wants to know, what the color, why you like Argyle socks, or how would you rate Pink Floyd's songs in order. They don't want to know it.
They don't know it from you.
Yeah.
That's true.
You what? You think we can't make a rack of lamb better than the next guy?
No, I'm sure we can. I think different people have different... And again, all our opinions are based on personal experiences. We are conditioned by our circumstances. And I think both of us recognize, although you and I had completely different upbringings, both of us recognize how lucky we've been, at least in the matter of racism. That we've grown up in two different countries, but we've never faced anything that has either scarred us for life or left such a lasting impression on us that we've had to either, pass on our insecurities to our children.
We might be in a minority because
we might be in a minority.
It is very prevalent.
Yeah. And it is something that can't be swept under the carpet anymore. You can't just think that, nature can take its own course and everything will be great and equality will prevail and everybody will have a level playing field, all in due course when it happens. Because that's going to take centuries. Now is the time to act. Now is the time for everyone to speak up. As they're saying, if you're silent, that only means you're complicit with those who are perpetrating the crime. You have to make your voice heard.
On a much lighter note.
Yes.
How's it feel being old? I believe you're the mum of 2 teenage sons since yesterday.
That's right. I am. That's it. Game over now. A 13 and a 15-year-old. What's
nearly
left?
16. 15 and 16.
Yeah, the 13 and 15 and a half. Please don't make him 16 yet, because that is a whole new challenge for us to embrace. But I'm looking forward to having some very intelligent conversations with my 2 teenagers. And I'm going to say to them in no uncertain terms, you're on your own from now. If you need any advice from me, come to me. Otherwise, you know where the big beans and sausages are kept.
Well, that's your first hurdle where you fall in, yeah.
Which is?
What, you think you're going to have intelligent conversations with teenagers?
Yeah, well, there you go. Clearly, I don't remember my teenage years. Well, that's it for now. We'll be back with another episode of the Shabby and Man podcast. If you enjoy listening to us, please do subscribe. Please do rate, recommend, review, do everything else that one does, and find us on all the usual platforms.
Lovely. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye-bye.
Bye.